Welcome to Divisive Issues, a comic book podcast where we talk about comic books. I'm Ryan.
I'm Sly.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Darryl.
Wait, no, it's a super spooky Halloween month. I'm dying.
I'm like a snake.
Oh. Phil's Phil in a grave.
Filkenstein.
And I'm Darryl, because I'm spooky as is.
But, so, the month of October, we're going to do a spooky spooktacular, doing horror comics from different eras, starting with 70s Dracula comics.
Do we have a name? Is it like Octoboo or like Octremble?
Whatever you want.
You're not funny.
I have to.
That's a good name. Mine's not funny.
That's not scary. That's just like.
Mine's pretty scary. Just see his face.
Sly's coming over. That's scary.
That's scary.
Okay.
All right. So I just I have to say, as a confession, I am probably going to be a buzzkill a lot of this month because I'm not really into a lot of horror stuff. I don't get as into Halloween as most people do.
This is a warning. Phil's a complete dork, and he's not fun at all, so he's not gonna like this month at all.
But that's fine. It's good to have contrasting opinions sometimes.
I'm on Phil's side. I'm not like anti-Halloween. I like the day Halloween, but the whole all the motifs are just kind of so cliched at this point.
I like scary things, but I don't find like a lot of the stereotypical scary stuff scary.
If you're talking about like Halloween, like it being a month of celebrating horror, I think fuck you. If you're talking about like the cliche monster mash shit that goes on, then I agree.
Okay. But we're talking about the cliche monster mash shit because that's what we're reading.
Monster Mash?
I like Halloween Town.
You know what's scary? Scary stuff is like existential dread. Like,
yes.
Yeah, when you're playing Soma or something, and I'm like scared of my existence.
Or the Fly.
Or the Thing. Yeah, these are scary things. But most horror stuff is not scary.
Wait, the Thing like from Fantastic Four?
We're talking about this instead of doing actual comics.
Alright, let's talk about Dracula.
So, I just want to give the backstory on how these books came about. The premise is Dracula versus Marvel. And this happened because horror comics were actually banned from comics for at least 2 decades. Basically, they were considered too scary. Unlike Phil, he said, "This is not scary enough." The Comics Code Authority said, "No, this is too scary."
Yes, Phil testified in front of Congress that was like, "No, these aren't scary enough. These are pussies."
Yeah, he was a counter argument, but but when they got the rights, Marvel started testing out how books with these horror icons would sell. And most of them didn't sell that well. Like, they had a Frankenstein book, a werewolf book. They didn't last so long. But the one that really had left an impression on Marvel was Tomb of Dracula, which was a series written by Marv Wolfman, who would later go on to create the popular version of Teen Titans Today with Cyborg and Starfire.
If you want to hear more about that whole comics code and everything, shameless plug, listen to the Comrade Radio episode I did with Malcolm.
Yeah, but so all those books didn't last long except this one with Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan. And it became so popular that Dracula started becoming a regular villain in the Marvel Universe on scale like Doctor Doom and stuff like that. And just recently they've had events where big heroes fought Dracula, and he's become like a staple Marvel villain.
Jubilee from the X-Men is a vampire now.
Fucking comics.
Fucking comics, but having a vampire is obviously stupid. Have fun.
No, having an X-Man mutant become a vampire and then not be a vampire anymore is stupid.
Ironically, you're going to say that the X-Men one's the best one out of the shitty.
I am.
Yeah, so fuck you.
Spoilin Sly over here.
Fuck Phil, so I will spoil all this shit. I will spoil his life for him. You will die alone and afraid. That's what happens to him.
Hey, guess what? You spoiled all of humanity's ending, Sly.
That's scary.
No, it's a twist. Sly spoiled his own life.
I'm going to spoil your life specifically. You're going to wake up one night with me over your bed with a knife through your throat, okay? You said I'm not... How is that scary, motherfucker? I'll show you what's scary.
Murdering Sly returns.
Psychopath Sly.
We really... This is record time.
All right.
For someone threatening a murder.
Let me take this time to give some backstory on Dracula, not the comic character, but the literary villain.
Have you read Bram Stoker's Dracula film?
Yes. Yeah,
Is it actually good?
It actually is good. But it's
Is this
not
the first lore with Phil?
maybe because we're talking about books finally.
Yes.
Instead of fucking comics. But
Talking about real art.
So even though Dracula's the one that really popularized the whole vampire thing, there was actually a few novels and short stories that came out before him called, like, there was Carmilla, and there's one called The Vampire. And basically these came out in like the early 1800s, and it's like 60 years later we get Bram Stoker's Dracula. And what I think is interesting about it is it's kind of like a lot of people argue it's a representation of like the fears of the time. Whereas today, people were scared of, things like infections. So we have, zombie viruses or climate change end movies. Whereas Dracula is supposed to represent like this Eastern European foreigner coming and literally taking your women and draining your blood.
Also, vampires were also like an early version of zombies too, because blood was considered such a part of your life force. So like now we view
As opposed to now, where we know that blood doesn't matter at all in the body.
No, but fuck you. Like, eating flesh is like the more modern equivalent of what's the biggest fear of being eaten alive, rather than just having your blood sucked out comparatively.
Yeah.
I think the biggest fear for modern society is Sly with a knife.
That's just for me.
I'm kind of scared of that too.
It's interesting because we're going to see in these comics, there's a very, and not just in these comics, but in general, there's a lot of sexual overtones with vampires. And that's not like a new thing. Like, Carmilla was like a lesbian vampire who had like a harem of lesbian vampires.
I wanted to ask you about that, because weren't early vampires... I know there were some sexualized vampires, but from what I heard, a lot of early vampires were more like, kind of like, more feral, more... Like, they would... One of the ways to counter a vampire was to put like rocks in front of your house, and then the vampires will have to count them out, and then the sun will come up and they'll die from that. Like,
Is that a feral thing?
They're more like trolls type things.
They're more like animalistic, more than the suave.
Okay, I know what you mean.
So that idea of the vampire though is like it's like old. There's a lot of old myths about vampires, but the first time they're like collected and they personified in stuff like Dracula and Carmilla, that was given a very sexual element, and a lot of people argue it's because of this whole idea of the swarthy, Eastern Europeans coming to the West and seducing. You know how there's always like this fear of foreigners coming and fucking your women? That's like a thing, right?
Yeah, it's a very...
Like,
I have that fear every night.
But like, because a lot of people say Dracula's based on Vlad the Impaler, who's Romanian, and
the Impaler, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He was called Vlad Dracula, just for...
No,
Yeah.
but like the Impaler, like with his dick.
I got it right. You're not funny.
I got it. Yeah. But there's like this fear of like this reverse colonialism where we colonize these places and now they're going to come and live where we are and they're going to take our women. So there was a pretty sexual overtone, like right from the time that people were writing like novels about it. I know what you mean though. Like in old myths, it was kind of like an animalistic thing. But once they started collecting it, there was like a very sexual thing about it, and that's why we'll see in these comics like Dracula can even just like talk to a woman and just like not mind control her, but he has like a charm.
Yeah, he actually does have mind control. At least I know in the movies he has hypnotism powers.
Well, that's the thing
Okay.
that even permeates in like the modern, like hip, super cool, sexy vampire stuff.
Like stuff like Twilight.
I haven't read Twilight, but I assume that's a thing. And like True Blood has the same thing where you can
definitely.
like control people.
Yeah, vampires are sexy.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like vampires, because like I don't find like I like vampires only when they're feral, not when they're small.
I actually like Dracula because he is suave
Dracula,
and he's
say it right.
He's such a thespian. He's always like delivering these long speeches and like he's pompous and arrogant. Like I love how he commands the scene whenever he appears. It's so cheesy.
I find that I generally like Dracula the longer I like him more the longer it's been since I've experienced the Dracula story, because I always like him as an archetype, but I feel like he gets so old so fast.
I agree.
That's actually opposite. He's young forever, Ryan. You got it backwards.
Yeah, you're right.
Shall we begin?
Yes.
Yeah,
So we're going to start with the series I mentioned, Tomb of Dracula, the one that launched the character.
You're gonna do it every fucking time, aren't you, Sly?
Yes, I will. And it's issue 10. This issue is very important because it's the first appearance of Blade.
This is his first appearance?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Blade was not like, it's funny. It's always interesting to me. People say Phil will say characters are lame. They should never get any attention to Ant-Man or Aquaman because they're fucking lame. Blade was created as a supporting character for Dracula. He wasn't even the main character's book, and he was a zealous character for ages.
I had no idea this was his first appearance because he's just like here with a supporting cast.
Yeah, and like he's not even this is like he's not even the main character in this book. Like he's like tertiary in terms of like the characters of their importance in the story.
Yeah,
and that's why whenever people like Phil say these characters lame, don't give them attention, I say fuck you, because any character Blade's one of those characters that proves any character to become A-list if you give them the right story. Like the movies with Wesley Snipes gave Blade the right story and made him a mainstream icon. So fuck you, Phil.
I have said when we talked about that question of are all characters shitty, I did say
are all characters shitty?
And Phil's answer was yes.
All characters are garbage. Every character.
Characters, I hate them all. I'm a missing
actors surprisingly okay.
Yeah.
All right, so who's doing it?
It's me. But just to on the cover is basically Dracula holding a woman like he usually does in the classic pose where a monster carries off a woman, and Blade's like, drop that girl, Dracula, or this wooden knife will finish you off forever. Maybe you're hot stuff back in Transylvania, but nobody messes around with Blade, the Vampire Slayer.
He sounds like Bart Simpson.
I couldn't believe this. I couldn't believe this was him.
And just to explain his costume, he's wearing green glasses, like green sunglasses, green pants, and a red jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've only seen Blade like in the black trench coat type outfit, and the afro and the bright outfit was just...
Even though I don't like Blade's design, I do just want to say that I adore Gene Colan a lot, and his Daredevil work and a lot of his Marvel work at this time is, I think, like some of the best art Marvel had. And I like his art in this book a lot, even if I don't like Blade's design.
I agree, and I also think his art is perfect for a horror book like this.
I agree.
It's more lucid and like less sturdy than like Jack Kirby or other Silver Age artists. Like more...
and he frames things in a much more interesting way, and it's always more, even when the story's kind of boring, it's always exciting to read. So just shout out to Gene Colan.
Yeah. So it opens up with a bunch of people going to a boat. Two people going to a boat near the docks, and they find to sneak away and get married. But the three vampires show up as bats, and
this happens like so fast.
Yeah, and the vampires try to attack the couple, and the couple starts screaming, and all of a sudden Blade shows up. And he says,
what's weird is the vampires go to attack them, and immediately the guy's like, I'm gonna fight vampires. Like he recognizes they're vampires.
He's like, vampires.
And he goes to fight them.
Well, if you saw a vampire, would you just give up and say, suck my blood?
You'd run away. But he's not running. He faces the vampires, these eternal beings.
It's Phil. He's like, I'm not fucking scared of Dracula. I'm only afraid of existential dread.
You're not scary, you fucking cliche.
You bat. What are you gonna do? Bite me?
Can't steal my woman, you foreigner.
But like to hint what Darryl's saying, the vampire's like, haha, you're stupid, you can't fight us off. And Blade's like, yeah, but they can't, but I can. And he starts beating the shit out of vampires. And he does like karate chops on them and shit.
And I really didn't know this was his first appearance, because even the vampires know about him. They're like, we were warned about him.
Well, a lot of these characters in Tomb of Dracula, a lot of the characters were treated as they've been hunting vampires for years, and now the Dracula showed up in the modern day. They're coming to track him down for the final time. Like, it was treated like every character was kind of introduced this way, except for the first character, Frank Drake, who was Dracula's descendant.
Oh, okay. I've only read like a pretty bad Doctor Strange crossover with Tomb of Dracula.
Yeah. So one bat tries to get away, and one vampire turns into a bat and tries to get away, but Blade jumps after him and grabs him as he's a bat and basically drags him to the ground. And says, I said you ain't escaping, man, and I mean it. And he just stabs him right through his chest.
It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool fight.
With his wooden knife.
Yeah, he has
part of me wonders if Sly always likes to do these episodes so he can just like pretend to be a black guy.
I did have Bart Simpson voice, and you said stop it. So now I switch it, and you're like, no, stop that. Don't just talk normally and be boring. Like, so then Blade he goes and fights his vampire. All right, but then after he kills the guys, Quincy Harker, who is one of the actual main characters of the book, who is John Harker's son from the original Dracula novel. He shows up and he basically chastises Blade, saying, "You're a loose cannon. Turn your badge."
His complaint is that he was tracking the vampires to Dracula, and Blade just ruined it by just jumping in and stabbing them all.
Yeah, basically. And then we cut to an actual boat at sea.
An actual boat? Were we looking at fake boats before?
No, because we were at docked boat. Fuck you, bro.
A scene right out of that Hulk feminist comic.
I was gonna say it's right out of that whole comic.
Bunch of yuppies.
This was very common at the time to have a bunch of yuppies like partying, and they're partying on this boat.
Gabby, honey, or Garby.
Garby, you're garbage, honey.
This party is absolutely the most wonderful you've had this month. I can't wait to see what your surprise is. Well,
is this a typo? Because it says his name's Garbiel, but like Gabriel is the name.
It's not like if you spell Chris with a K.
Yeah,
I guess.
Then you'll need wait no longer, lovely moniker. Be a dear, love, and move over a bit. It's time to call our guest to attention. Friends, weird. Please, a moment. It's time, friends, for the raison d'etre, the piece de resistance, if you will, for our little celebration. Who is it? You all know him. It's Count Dracula. And everyone's like, oh, magnificent.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Count Dracula at your bid.
Garby's outdone himself this time. He sounds just like the movie.
and they're like, oh, are you really a vampire? I'm afraid so, my dear. It is a curse, alas, but you needn't be afraid of me. The legend I attack beautiful young ladies as yourself are strictly stories, I assure you. By the way, fun fact, I read online, in the original Dracula movie, they had Dracula attack only women because they wanted to make sure people didn't think he was gay. And that's what I always think of.
I'm saying there is a sexual element to
but
it.
Like, every time I think of Dracula, I just imagine him saying, "I'm not gay. I don't only suck guys, but girls."
That was one of the funny things about reading these comics is he consistently goes after women, and there's only rare times we'll do a man and it won't be romanticized at all. He's just like, I just need blood.
He does
real
a man.
quick.
Rare times he does a man. He sometimes swings that way.
I think, if I recall correctly, it's been a while since I read it, but he does generally prey on women.
Yeah, I think so too, but it just seems so silly to me, like that the movies they made saying only women. If he sucks any guy's blood, it's super
yeah, because it looks like when he's biting their neck, it looks like he's giving them a hickey.
Yeah, that's
and
the
they're
thing.
like passing out and fainting under his power. Like you don't want to put a man in an emasculating position like that.
And also, the only way to become a vampire, I think, in the book, is to suck the blood from his chest. So you have a guy just sucking out Dracula, and it looks pretty gay.
Yeah, it's a pretty intimate thing.
Yeah.
In general.
So is it ridiculous to anyone else that he's like trying to explain like, no, it's not like it is in the movies. It's just like a blood disorder. But I still dress in this big cape and arrive dramatically and are like, I am Dracula.
No, because he could be a performer. What's ridiculous is the fact that he's lying to them when 2 pages later he attacks them.
Yeah.
Where he's like, no, I need to hold up this guise real quick until I attack Garby. Spoilers. Poor Garby. It's just funny that he has this whole monologue
And he's like,
prepared.
call me Vlad.
Vlad, yes, Vlad. But so then he goes and sucks a woman's blood. She basically lures her away.
Yeah, it's Garby's girl, and she's just some blonde ditz. And he calls her delightfully charming and deliciously naive, and she takes that as a compliment.
Yeah.
No, she says, "Oh, you gotta be kidding." He says, "No, Dracula does not lie. You are a most intelligent girl."
Of course, she goes, no one's ever said that to me before.
She says, "Gosh, no one ever said that to me before." Yep.
But I thought he was transfixing her here or whatever he does.
He probably was.
It doesn't seem like he has to, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was just flirting with her.
He has a charm spell that just is always working. That just
Charm person. He's a level 20 wizard.
Charm plus 2.
But so then he goes after killing the girl. He goes to.
Well, he doesn't kill her.
He doesn't kill her. He just drains her and leaves her. And he's like, "Hey, manservant, watch over her."
Yeah, so basically he has a Renfield type character who's like an obsessive slave.
Also, every transitionary panel,
Obsessive slave.
He's always laughing really loud as he walks to a different scene.
I have to say, I love the narration in this story, as stupid as it is sometimes, where they're introducing this random boat captain who's about to die, and they're like, "Meet Captain Charlie O'Casey, born with scales instead of legs, because no one can remember the last day they saw him walk on dry land. He claims he was found floating in on the sea waves as a child, and when he dies, it will also be at sea. Unfortunately, Charlie is right."
I actually really love that because it gives some color to people. Right?
Yeah. I agree.
So it's Captain gets bitten by
He doesn't get bitten. What does he do? He like punches him. He slaps him and he disappears.
No, he like backhands him.
He backhands him, yeah.
and then he like disappears.
No, he uses them later.
He uses him later, but for now he's just piloting the boat by himself. And he says, "Now this vessel sails on my course, a course through hell itself."
It's so campy though that he's like
so
driving a
campy.
fucking yacht.
And what I love is the next scene is like just this woman being tossed around, like he's just like, wildly piloting this giant
the boat.
boat.
like
Yeah.
this party yacht is going like fucking 10 knots.
But then they're like, "Good heavens, is old Charlie gone mad? What's he trying to do, sink us all?" And Dracula shows up as Mist, which she can do, and says, No, fool, it is not your pilot's doing, but mine. And he explains he wants them to either be slaves or become vampires. And
They respond by shooting him in the face.
yeah, but since these Dracula bullets don't do anything, and
I love how everyone in the ship is like, he calls them frightened rabbits, and he's like, none of them. I thought they were like had a spell on them, but then this grumpy guy is like, "I'm gonna fucking shoot you, you piece of shit," and he's like, "Finally a real man among all you worms." Then he throws him overboard.
and one thing I find funny, like this is supposed to kill, he's supposed to kill him, but later on, this is how they all escape. Spoilers, jumping off the boat.
Oh, that's true.
That's not how you can't just jump off a boat that's sinking and get whatever.
I mean, it's a party boat. I assume it's not like in the middle of the ocean.
It's probably in the middle of the ocean.
It doesn't matter because a sinking boat pulls people.
Oh,
in.
that's true. That's true.
A sinking boat tells no tales. Whatever it's called.
Dead men tell no sly.
Loose lips sink ships.
Yeah, but
Loose buttholes.
what happens is
Thanks, Phil.
Blade is put on a nearby boat, and he's putting on scuba gear, and he swims over to the main ship, and he starts rhyming for some reason, saying, "Now there's a mother, now to border, which should be taught, brother. Give the man 10 cents cigar." So I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
he's real chatty to himself. Like I looked in the previous page. I'm like, who's he talking to? And there's no one around him. They're not like thought bubbles either.
And also, like Phil's making fun of me for giving him a black voice, but Blade does talk in a very stereotypical black voice. And Marv Wolfman said the reason why he didn't use Blade that often after this for a while was because he felt like he had to evolve on writing black characters, and he wasn't that good here.
Yeah, it's like your
I
typical
agree.
blaxploitation voice.
That's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
self-aware, though, to say, like, I'm not good at this. I'm going to wait until I am.
Yeah.
He eventually created Cyborg, so, he learned.
Yeah, he did. And so basically, Dracula gives his ultimatum. But one guy who
I love this so much. He's like, he gives his ultimatum: you either serve him forever or become a vampire.
Yeah.
And this one guy pulls out this cross.
One guy
I
in
know-
what's that? What do you call that? It's not a turban.
No, I don't know what you call it. He looks like he's from the Middle East.
Like a Saudi prince or something like that.
Yeah, he's. It's actually like 10 million Christians in the Middle East, so he's probably like one of those Nestorian or Coptic Christians.
Yeah, so he looks like one of those guys, and he takes out a cross, and he says, "I know my answer, demon. I will die before serving an unchristian dog as you. Die or destroy you first." And he takes out his cross, and everyone now, like Dracula being scared of the cross, which is what he's weak to. He's weak to a lot of things. Dracula's kind of a pussy.
Yeah.
But,
He's like Geodude.
yeah,
Fuck you.
Jesus sucks. Jesus like the Dracula of.
Guess what? If Judu's like Dracula, Dracula survives all of these encounters.
Yeah, because
so-
he has
He's
sturdy.
sturdy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now with being distracted by the cross, all the passengers gang up on him.
I love this panel of Dracula falling over and a bunch of people like literally like piling on him,
Yeah,
going, "Kill
and
him!"
he's
Yeah.
so upset. Like he's so stunned and taken back by this.
I guess this is Jughead that's just like, we need steak, we need steak.
But so then they're trying to hold him down so they can get a stake. But what happens is Dracula turns into a mist, which is really OP. Like that's how he escapes most. He survives for 70 issues just because he can turn into mist. Super OP. But like he turns into mist and gets out of all the grasps.
And while he does this, the lady that he drained wakes up and defeats his henchman by just clonking him on the back of the head.
Yeah.
And says, "I can leave now to join my love,
Yeah.
Dracula. I come to you, to my love." Really shitty dialogue. but okay.
She's talking about she talked to me in life. Being a vampire. Being vampires make you learn proper English.
She's probably just like entranced by him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, you don't have to say my love twice in the same sentence.
You do when you're in love.
Yeah. It's like George Lucas. I love you, my
Yeah.
love water.
And this awesome scene where there's like 50 people like punching Dracula in the face, and the one guy holding the cross over him, and he's like, "Burn the evil from his soul."
It's pretty cool.
But
pretty cool.
but then so then Blade shows up to try to face off against Dracula, and they start fighting until finally Dracula gets the upper hand, and he's about to bite Dracula until his bride, the girl he bit, shows up, and she's like, "Take me, my love, I am here."
I don't get how this like ruins his plan.
Because he gets distracted. He's like, woman, I can't, I'm talking, I'm busy.
Yeah. Woman, leave me alone. I'm in the middle of my job here, guys.
Yeah.
But this happens so fast because he's like, I'm about to beat Blade, and she shows up and she's like, come hang out with me. And then all of a sudden, Blade is just like, I win.
Yeah. It's really forced.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, there is actually no, like, Dracula just doesn't get beat. Blade just shows up, and Dracula's like, I'm done. I'm out.
I guess I lose because this woman's here now.
Yeah. But he basically says, I don't really lose because I actually put explosives on the boat, and everyone here will die.
I am Nemesis.
Well, no, we at least saw some planning here because he took the ship captain before, and now he's like, I transfixed the ship captain to set explosives or whatever. So it's not like out of nowhere.
Explosives from where?
He was a guest on the ship. He could have brought in his luggage.
But then the Blade just starts throwing people off the boat, and one guy's like, I can't swim, and he's like, no better time to learn, mister, unless you want to blast to bits.
And as he chucks the guy off, he goes, oh my.
Yeah. And everyone's being thrown off the boat, and like just like before.
These people are dead. They're fucking dead. They drown. When a boat sinks, it pulls everything around underwater.
No, there's a nearby boat. Blade's boat.
Oh yeah, Blade's boat's nearby.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, it'll hold 100 people.
Dracula leaves his manservant to die.
Yeah, he leaves his Renfield character to die.
Not only that, but he says farewell. Ha 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 as he blows up.
Yeah.
He's like, you're an idiot, bye!
What was funny, too, is the 3 vampires at the beginning of the comic, he actually cared about what happened to them, but this manservant, he's just like, you're so pathetic.
Well, because he couldn't even keep an unconscious woman in her room.
And to be fair, this actually was a recurring character in the comics, and this is like the 10th issue where he would just fuck shit up.
Oh,
and he's like, I'm sick of your shit. Like, fuck you.
I kind of love that it's just like, I'm sorry, you keep fucking up.
Yeah. And that ends the story. Thoughts on this issue?
Kind of boring.
I can't believe Blade is still a character.
I will say, this is my least favorite. I've read 12 issues of the series to prepare for this episode. This is actually the worst out of the 12.
I've heard people rave about the book.
Yeah. This is actually really weird because this is actually in the middle of another story. I don't know if this was like a last minute decision. Basically, this is the middle of another story where Dracula, after being weak from not having enough blood, he basically gets beaten up by a gang of like a wandering like gang. They just beat the shit out of him while he's weak.
The Bloods.
The Bloods and Crips. Basically, they beat the shit out of him.
The Rubens.
And this is like right in the middle of a story where Dracula basically goes to seek revenge on them. And the ending of that story is actually really creepy. It ends with the leader of the gang is actually a guy in an iron lung, and what happens is Dracula, turns him into a vampire. So that way, he's trapped in this iron lung, basically hungry for blood, basically begging for sunlight to come, so he will die. It's actually really chilling, really scary.
That sounds way better than oh my.
Yeah, it's like this is like the Hulk issue where I said like the reason why this is so bad is because it's out of place in the stories it's taking place in. You know what I mean?
I thought going into this episode that out of all the stories, I would have liked the one with Blade the most because I enjoyed the movie when I saw it, and Blade makes sense against Dracula. Some of my other problems with the Dracula appearing in the other things is it doesn't make sense, and it just like the two characters don't mesh that well. Like I think X-Men and Dracula kind of meshes surprisingly well, but it's like Thor against Dracula. It's like, how do you even do this? Thor beats Dracula hands down. Like, this isn't really a problem.
Yeah,
that's what I was reading too. I'm like, superheroes like Dracula's strong compared to like regular humans, but Thor's a demigod.
That's why it's cool to see like an underdog like Blade, just this half vampire fight against.
Is he even a half vampire in the story?
He's actually he's before he became a vampire in the comics.
No, but I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah, normal dudes fight Dracula. So I thought going into it, it's like, oh, this is gonna be cool. And then I read it, I'm like, this is extremely boring. Dracula looked so weak, just being like held down and beat up a bunch, and then flying away for no reason. And Blade wasn't even like, I wasn't like, all right, Blade. I'm just like, oh, you're one of these characters.
Yeah.
Darryl, you suggested that X-Men might be a better fit. And speaking of,
X-Men is a better fit. We'll see if it is. But we have...
Yeah, you already told us it is.
Wait, just because I think that doesn't mean that you guys do too.
I'm pretty sure no one in the world would think that that Blade comic is better than any of these.
Yeah.
And if you do, stop listening and go.
I mean, it's not terrible.
I like that Blade comic better. I like that Blade comic better than this comic, and I'll get to why at the end.
Fuck you.
That's
fuck
crazy.
you.
Okay, so this is Uncanny X-Men 159 by Chris Claremont, who I'm sure we've mentioned a million times. Chris Claremont wrote the X-Men for fucking like 15 years.
I think I just automatically like Chris Claremont stuff. Every time I read it, I just enjoy it, no matter what.
He's great.
Yeah, he's just great.
And the penciler is Bill Sienkiewicz, and this is before Bill like really got his style. Like
This is when he was still like a Neil Adams kind of artist.
It's because I'm a huge Bill Sienkiewicz fan, and this isn't like his unique style yet, but I still think he does a great job.
The cover is close to his unique style. The image of Storm with the X-Men carrying to a quarter, that's a very close to what he evolves into.
Yeah, and I just want to say I do really like Sienkiewicz's art in this book.
I love it. He's one of my favorite artists. Top 5 easily.
And speaking of the cover, it's literally an image of Storm's face in the background, like looking up and like fire coming out of her eyes. She has like vampire fangs and she's laughing, and all the X-Men are like cowering.
While there's a silhouette of her behind them where they're backing up into. It's really cool.
Yeah, I love it.
I love it too.
So how does the story open up, Phil?
So the story opens up with some bullshit that doesn't matter. It's like, oh, we're going to see our friend Misty. She's not here. Some supermodels here instead. Who cares?
They try on clothes.
Yeah, let's skip all this.
Storm and Kitty Pryde.
Wolverine gets drunk.
Because it's Chris Claremont, it's just a lot of like fun character stuff.
I thought that was so funny that Wolverine shows up and he's like, I'm just going to take your beers and drink.
Yeah, the thing is, like, as much as I'm saying this doesn't matter, like, this is part of the stuff that really makes me enjoy all the Uncanny X-Men I've read, because I feel like you know these characters. Like, they feel like people.
He has a lot of scenes where he just shows the X-Men just hanging out, being people.
Yeah, and it's not always the most fun to talk about, but it's a lot of fun to read.
Yeah.
And, like, you get a lot of small character stuff. Like, we immediately established that Storm is, like, a mentor big sister to Kitty. And...
because she's going to see her parents, and she's like, I need something to wear. And she's like, oh, I'll help you out.
Yeah, and, like, it's the kind of thing that just shows, like, this is a family, this is a team. And I especially mentioned that Kitty and Aurora Storm are very close, because that matters.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Kitty Pryde went to go see her parents, and Storm walked with her. And then she calls up the X-Men and be like, hey, can I talk to Storm? And she's like, what? She should be with you. And she's like, no, she went home. And then we see Storm lying in an alley with blood coming out of her neck.
We should clarify the team right now is Nightcrawler, Wolverine, Colossus, and the two we mentioned before, Kitty and Storm.
Yep.
And they're not at the X-Mansion, they're at one of the Misty Knight's apartment.
Yeah, they're in like Greenwich Village or something.
Yeah.
I love how no matter what Marvel comic we read, it's like, I was somewhere in Manhattan. Like, every superhero in the fucking world lives within like a 5-block radius of each other. So then we cut to the hospital where Storm is brought in, and they're like, I don't know how she survived. She's been mugged or something. She has puncture wounds on her neck. And then Wolverine and Colossus bust in.
Buster makes him feel good.
Yeah, I really miss the status quo because they're like, we can't match your blood type. I don't know why. And they're like, people know about mutants, but they don't like know everything about mutants. So they're like, they're having this struggle where they're like, we need to get Storm the medical attention she needs, but we don't want them to discover she's a mutant because then they're going to hate us. And like nowadays that would never happen because everybody knows everything about mutants.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like even just some little character flair here where Colossus is telling Wolverine to be calm, and Wolverine's like, I'm cool as ice, Speedy. I won't do a flaming thing till I find whoever did this to Aurora.
The next page where the doctor is describing what happened and everything, this is my problem with this issue, is that it's sort of like a double-edged sword, where it's just so exposition heavy.
Well, it is Chris Claremont.
This book took me the longest to get through.
Chris Claremont loves his dialogue more than anyone else, I think.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, though, is that you get to actually like build a lot, and the stuff that it gets into with Dracula later, explaining what Dracula's powers are and what he can do, I thought that was really cool. It's just that you're reading literal paragraphs and frames.
That's a lot of people's problems with Chris Claremont. Nobody uses more words than Chris Claremont, and that's including Stan Lee and Roy Thomas.
Yeah,
but let me just say that I think this might have taken you twice as long as Blade, but it's 10 times more like
interesting.
Yeah, the quality is higher.
That like I said about his Claremont's writing is at least the dialogue, like there's so much of it, but they're trying to move the story along. It's not just quips.
Yeah,
It's not like Stan Lee where I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, the thing, you're very grumpy and you call everyone names.
You might say, Stanley's quips, but like that, like when we talked about not Teen Titans, Legion of Superheroes, where we like if you should have a scene where it's the exterior of a plane and there's people talking inside of it. In Legion of Superheroes, you cannot tell who the fuck was talking. In Stan Lee stuff, you got such a good taste of everyone's voice just to their natural dialogue.
I agree that Stan Lee's better than Legion. That's definitely one of the worst comics we've read so far.
But I think it's better than most DC stuff. Just having characters make it seem like these just quips. You get a good taste of a good sense of everyone's voice.
And especially like when you think the X-Men, you think Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Wolverine. These are all characters that people only know because of Chris Claremont.
Yeah.
So like even though like Storm says so many unnecessary things, you still get more about Storm's personality in a page of this than we knew about any character in the whole last issue.
If you took most Chris Claremont comics that I've read, and you took out all the pictures and just had dialogue, you can tell who is who just by the way they talk. And if you took that Blade comic and did that, I'd be like, "This is."
You can tell Blade. Blade talks very black. And
Okay,
Dracula,
you're right. Oh, you're right.
You can't say about that book. Like I know you guys didn't like it that much, but it wasn't that bad.
No, but I understand Phil's point actually, because there are a lot of comics where I read it, I'm like, a lot of the characters have like the same kind of voice. Like when we get into the Thor one, the lady that Thor likes has like the same voice as every lady that every superhero likes.
Yes.
I don't even remember her name.
Other than when she's using her like Asgardian voice.
Well, Thor is a run that no one remembers or likes.
We'll get to that next.
All right, let's move on. Storm wakes up and
the
she's
art
like,
on this page is so good.
This is when she's sleeping after the X-Men see her.
Yeah, they're like rest for the night.
Yeah, so they tell her to rest. She's resting, and it's like she tosses turns, trying in vain to make herself comfortable. As the night deepens, her senses sharpen, becoming unbearably acute. A voice calls to her. She ignores it for as long as she is able.
And it keeps cutting from a Storm turning around in her bed to the window, and mist is growing around the window.
And it's slowly zooming in on her face as more mist comes in.
Yeah, more and more pained, and then her eyes open, and you see this like painted image of her face, and it looks almost like a painting you would expect to see in Dracula's castle.
It's kind of like a charcoal sketch that someone did of her.
And then the narration even says, then as if this is a dream, basically. So basically, things feel less real at this moment, which makes the art reflect that.
Yeah, and then it goes back to like the regular comic art. And it's just, there's mist everywhere, and she opens the window and says, "Enter freely and of your own will." And it's...
Enter Ace Freely, member of Kiss.
and she like is wearing just this white dress that flows into the white mist that's coming through the window.
Yeah.
And her blood burns white hot within her as the fog swirls around her, enshrouding her, caressing her. She smiles with a wanton, inhuman, supernal joy.
It's very classic Dracula with the
Yeah.
woman Dracula coming into the window, the woman waiting for him and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it works so well.
The charcoal sketch of her face was my favorite part out of the whole comic. I was like, hey, this is actually pretty cool.
This is what Sienkiewicz's style becomes when he does books like New Mutants or Moon Knight.
Okay.
And it's like, you would love that stuff, Darryl.
Yeah, it's
sounds up
amazing.
my alley.
So what happens the morning after?
Kitty Pryde comes home and she's like, "Hey, I'm home, guys. What's up?" And all the men look distraught. And they tell her, Storm is, attacked. She's sick, and she's not getting better. So Kitty Pryde runs in the room and opens the window, and she's like, "The sunlight hurts." And then Kitty Pryde's like, "That's weird." And then she's
like, casually, "That's weird."
She's talking to her, and she's like, "I hope you're feeling better."
All this.
And then she's like, "Where are you wearing that? Where'd you get that scarf?" And she's like, "It's a gift from an admirer." It has a big script D on it.
Yeah, he gave her the D.
Yeah.
He did.
If you watch any Dracula movie or read any book, it's always written the D is written in this style.
Yeah. And she's like freaking out because she's like, "But how can that be? That was in my dream." And Kitty Pryde's like, "Oh, sorry to mean to upset you." And then the light shines off the Star of David on Kitty Pryde's neck, and Storm recoils away from it. And now again, Kitty Pryde's like, "That's weird. Aversion to sunlight, to religious artifacts, anemia, weird dreams." And she's like putting it together, but she's like, I don't think that can be real. Like, I don't think she could actually become a vampire.
This is the reason why Kitty's one of my favorite X-Men characters, is because she has this like naivety where she's like, "No one's gonna believe me. I'm just a dumb kid. It can't be a Dracula. That's dumb."
It can't be a Dracula.
Well, you know what I mean. It can't be
It's a Frankenstein. Watch out.
Yeah.
So is she kind of like a more useful Jubilee?
Yes, Jubilee is very reminiscent of Kitty's character at this time.
Jubilee from the cartoon, which is the one that most people think of, was basically Kitty Pryde.
But not as good.
Because that's where all my X-Men knowledge comes from.
Yeah.
In the comics, Jubilee's more of just like a bitchy brat. But
I love Jubilee, but that's fine.
You can say that about her.
Yeah.
Then she runs away crying or whatever, and then
because Storm basically pushes her out of the room and saying, "Get the fuck out of here."
and then the night comes again.
Now, I wanted to ask this to Phil.
Yeah.
Has it always been any religious artifact or just crosses?
From what I remember, in the original the original Gothic lit, it was just Christian imagery.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because I like this concept a lot, and they get into it more. That we'll get into it when they explore it more later in the issue. But I do really like that, like, any religious artifact, if you believe in it, works.
Yeah, I think that is a more modern thing, but I think it works because he is supposed to be some kind of dark, not necessarily like. I mean, the thing is, he does talk about Satan a lot too, so it seems like it has to be an Abrahamic thing. Like, you have to either be Jewish, Christian, or Muslim.
Yeah, but I just think having a Jewish artifact, that was an unexpected but really cool twist.
Yeah,
I'm just imagining that because you're saying it has to be Abrahamic. I'm imagining that it wasn't, and you just have a worshiper of a giant flying spaghetti monster holding a noodle. Frank's like, no, get away.
It's probably anything that it specifically repels evil or is against evil. Because Dracula is always about oh, I'm so evil, I love evil, I have an evil.
So
aura.
a really good security system on your house will work just as well.
Yeah.
Yep, the tagline for those are always repels evil, destroys.
Well, I think burglars and murderers are pretty evil.
Whoop, they're just trying to survive, Ryan.
One fun fact about Dracula, though, security system actually would work because Dracula can't enter your house unless you let him into your house.
Yeah, thanks, Sly.
But isn't that so fucking lame? Dracula's such a fucking dork. I can't come in unless you let me in.
I hope Dracula kills you one day. I'm gonna dress up as Dracula and kill
Sly
you.
says, I'm gonna slit your throat, Phil. Phil's like, I hope Dracula attacks you.
No, that attacks kills. I don't even want him to turn into a vampire. I want him to just drain him to death.
But monsters, it's oh, I have to wait for you to be polite.
But he's not the thing is, he's not a monster in the sense that a lot of other monsters are monsters. He is like a being of the night that
has to be lent to your house.
But that's why the mind control sexual elements of it are interesting.
And it fits in again with this reverse colonization thing where you let them in and now they fuck your women.
Oh my god, you're right.
I never thought of it like that, but wow.
You come to my house, you fuck my wife.
He's specifically Romanian because a lot of British people at the time were anyone from Germany or eastward coming to Britain, which there was a fear of this, was seen as unclean foreigner.
I'm really glad we live in a society now where we're not that ignorant or scared of foreigners.
I was gonna say, I can't believe they felt that about other white people. They're oh, even white people are too scary for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we live in a post-racial society now, so.
Yeah, thank God.
So moving on, we cut to nighttime, and again, Storm wakes up in the night once more, throws open the windows to admit her lover. He does not keep her waiting. And then Dracula, I love this picture too of him coming in. He looks so suave with this beard and this time, like Sly was saying last time, the blue does make it look like it's nighttime.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we actually see him on the page.
And he looks really fucking suave. And he's like, Aurora, your name means beauty. Through me, Wind Rider, that beauty shall remain unchanged till the end of time. Through me, you shall have immortality a goddess deserves. Do you wish this? And she says yes. And then he introduces himself as Dracula, Prince of Darkness. And he's like, you're going to be my bride.
And that's the thing is, Claremont, you see a Claremont page, you're like, oh, there's so many words. And then I love reading every word, so it's fine.
Yeah. You guys bring up all the time that he's very wordy, and I don't realize it until you bring it up, because it goes quickly to me.
Yeah.
And then Kitty Pryde phases through the walls, because that's her power if we don't know.
Dressed as Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I was about to say.
And she comes in with a cross, saying, I may be a kid buster, but I've helped trash nastier villains than you. I'm an X-Man, and we take care of our own. Beat it, creep, or suffer the consequences. And Dracula is like, oh shit, the cross. And then he goes, wait.
You have to work on your Dracula voice. Oh shit, the cross.
Fine, you want to be Dracula?
The cross! Wait, the very presence of the holy object should be anathema to me, yet it has absolutely no effect. And why is that?
Because she doesn't believe in it. And
he
goes,
basically says, haha, you're a Jew.
yeah, you're no Christian, but a Hebrew. And then he grabs her by the throat, but he starts burning. And he goes, oh, fuck, a Star of David.
Fuck.
Yeah, have you been practicing that all week, Sly? So basically, Storm goes to protect Dracula from the Star of David.
They fly away together.
They fly away together because she can fly, because she's Storm.
Yeah.
And she basically turns to Kitty and she's like, forget me, child, and pray that we never meet again. And she's crying because they're friends. And then the X-Men busts in and they're like, what happened? She's like, Dracula. And they're like, what? You didn't tell us about vampires? And she's like, oh, I didn't think you'd believe me. And they're like, well, we gotta go find her. And apparently Dracula's living in a castle in Central Park.
Yep.
Yeah.
This castle's in Central Park, I guess.
No, there's not.
Maybe it's like in the Castlevania games where Dracula's castle teleports around.
That's true. It does randomly appear.
Oh, that's true. Okay. And
Learn the lore, bro.
Yeah, you can call yourself a Bram Stoker Dracula expert, Phil. You didn't know fucking about Castlevania games, the true canon.
Honestly, I said it was good before, but like Castlevania games they're way more fun than reading Dracula. Like it's interesting, but it's not like you don't read that expecting like an action novel. Anyway, so they're in Central Park.
This just in, Castlevania has better writings than Dracula.
Not writing. It's
more interesting, I think, because it's a game. Games are fun. Me like a game more than book. So they get to the castle and Dracula's like, behold, and he has rats and dogs attack them, and they start fighting. They start basically fist fighting Dracula. He punches Nightcrawler in the face, and
one of the things I kind of do like about X-Men comics is that you always have to think about how do I write it. If you have one person versus the X-Men, it's like how do I write it where the X-Men just don't kill him? Like that he has to find a way to keep them all busy individually.
Yeah. It's usually them versus a team or an army or one really strong guy.
And one thing I like about Chris Claremont especially is he always makes it so they have to work together to stop a threat.
Yeah.
It's never just like one guy just punches him in the face and that's over.
And he always shows like everybody has a role. You never have like Sue Storm sitting on the side.
I was going to say that's why I also enjoyed about Fantastic Four, but X-Men probably does it better.
Well, this is also a lot later. Fantastic Four around this time was getting better at it.
Yeah.
They try to fastball special him where
What's fastball special, Phil?
Oh my god.
Colossus grabs Wolverine's crotch and throws him at someone.
Basically, his arm acts as a catapult, and he, like, the place where he put the boulder is Colossus's hand, and he just holds Wolverine's butt as Wolverine, like, goes into crouching position.
This is something they do constantly.
This is common, yeah.
I didn't know. I was like, is this a one-time thing? Or are they,
No, look, Wolverine's the shortest X-Man. He's small. And Colossus is big and huge, so he can throw him, and then you have an adamantium claw guy.
I expect him to grab him by, like, the nape of his neck and
he doesn't always grab him by the taint.
In the movies, he just like basically cartwheels him and throws him.
No, Colossus isn't in the movies. Don't fucking lie.
He's in X3. He throws him.
Fuck you.
He's in Deadpool.
Yeah, Colossus is in Deadpool. That's nice. But he throws him, but Dracula turns to mist, and he's like, ha ha! And then Colossus actually tries to punch Dracula, and apparently Dracula's strong enough to just throw Colossus.
That's another thing. You say Dracula is not a threat to most of the Marvel Universe, but they also, in Marvel Universe, they made it more like, kind of like Castlevania games kind of did too, where Dracula's like a fucking giant boss. Like, he turns into giant monsters at the end. Like, Dracula's like that in Marvel Universe too. He's a big threat, like, power level-wise too.
Yeah, and then Wolverine's like, I know what to do.
This is my favorite part of the fight.
I love this. And he makes his claws into a cross, and he's like, eat shit, Dracula! And Dracula's like, as I told the child, that ploy is useless, unless you truly believe. And Wolverine's like, shit, I don't believe in God. And then Nightcrawler shows up, our resident or I think he's a Catholic.
Yep. Yeah, he's Catholic.
And he's like, in that case, vampire, your cause is lost, for I believe! And he shows two sticks.
Yarr!
And this is such a cool thing, because, like, the X-Men have always been a really diverse team since Claremont's run started, and like Nightcrawler is one of the most Catholic characters aside from like maybe Daredevil, and it very rarely gets used in ways that are like not just fleshing out his character or like a crisis of conscience thing, and seeing him actually use it in a fight is so cool to me.
And also, speaking of diversity, it's rare to have an actual atheist character like Wolverine.
Yeah, and it just, especially because two people have already tried to use crosses, it has so much more weight that, like, look at how much faith Nightcrawler has. Like, this isn't just a ploy, he really is Catholic.
That was actually pretty cool that they did show Wolverine, because I was actually surprised that they're willing to say, it's like, ha, you do not believe. I'm like, well, they're saying Wolverine Doesn't believe in God.
Wolverine's very blatantly an atheist. That's one thing I find really cool about him.
If anything, he's probably like a Shintoist.
Yeah, something like that.
X-Men are the fucking coolest. I'm just gonna say, I shit on comics all the time. I fucking love X-Men. All these comics, I really enjoy reading. I like talking about them. The characters are so interesting, even when they're doing weird stuff like fighting Dracula. There's so much cool stuff to talk about.
Maybe it's because it's like your favorite SJW world where it's all these different ethnicities living together and working together to stop like Magneto's fascist reign.
No, but I think I love Magneto too.
Phil, we should make you read the 2 stories where Kitty Pryde loves to use the N-word.
Oh, why?
So
talking about Kitty Pryde,
Dracula's like, I can call down lightning. Fuck you, Nightcrawler.
Yeah, I didn't know he could do that.
Fuck you, Nightcrawler. And he like is trying to strike him. So Nightcrawler's teleporting away from lightning. Again, amped power level here. This is just like give Dracula some powers.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. It makes sense because lightning's always present in vampire stories, but he actually controls lightning. I think that's cool.
I think it's cool too. Kitty Pryde slips away, comes into the castle, phases in, and pours holy water all over the coffin. She's like, haha, asshole. Which is actually, this harkens back to Bram Stoker's Dracula, where they put like Eucharist wafers in all the coffins so that he can't use them.
This is actually very reminiscent. There's a lot of references that feel very like the storm waiting for Dracula to come through, and a lot of it feels very reminiscent of specifically Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And then Storm shows up, and she's like very like vampiric looking. Half her face is in shadow, her eyes are red. She's got bright red lipstick on and vampire fangs. And she's like, nice of you to visit. And she says, don't resist, kitten. I don't want to hurt you. The change is really quite wonderful. And she's basically like, I don't want to have to stake you through the heart, but...
Kitty's like that. She's like, sort of like I stake her through the heart.
Yeah. Kitty's like, I don't want to do this. And she's like, I'm an elemental master. I can batter you senseless. And Kitty's like, you have to fight him. You told me you were a goddess consecrated to life. Prove it. Reach within you, to your heart and soul. Fight him. And she drops the stake and says, if you want my life so badly, then take it. I won't try to stop you.
I love Kitty so much.
And then we cut back to the fight outside, where lightning's about to strike. No, it does strike the team.
But basically, the Nightcrawler teleports right in front of Dracula, so lightning strikes him.
Yeah, and then for some reason, everyone lost after it struck Dracula.
It's because it struck them too, but he's immune.
Yeah.
Or something.
But it just shows it striking him in that panel.
Yeah.
No, it just shows like it's striking him, but then everyone's on the ground. I think the implication is that it was such a massive force when it struck.
And then down. Storm comes out looking like a vampire bride, and she's like, what will you do with them, my lord? He says, slay them. That, Dracula, is something you will never do. And she strikes him with lightning.
And then she gets her costume on all of a sudden. I don't know where.
Yeah, that's true.
It's really dumb. But she flies away as a bat, and he's like, traitorous witch, you'll pay for that. Enjoy your freedom. It will not last long. We have shared blood. We are bound. One heart, one mind, one soul for all eternity. And she flies after him, and she's like, 1v1 me, and she like calls a blizzard to fight him, crashes through a window with him.
He's fighting in his cool bat form, or man-bat form.
So he's fighting Storm, basically, and he's like, if you don't let me go, I'm going to kill this random civilian woman. And she's like, I don't want this person to die. So,
but she refuses to join Dracula's side no matter what.
Yeah. And then Dracula actually backs down here, and he's like, I knew from the moment that I tasted your blood that you are a woman of rare beauty, rare courage, rare strength. Those qualities attracted me to you. Now they have defeated me.
So basically, he like won't call her bluff. She's like, you could kill me. I'll never be a vampire. And he's like,
when I lived, I was a prince. You are one of the handful of women I've met who are worthy of being my queen. I offer you wonders, but I cannot force you to accept them. A lesson in consent here. Even Dracula is like, they have to consent.
Yeah, you gotta give up.
And this is why I don't like the story. Again, it's like the Hulk issue where the context is what really kills it for me. Because Claremont had a Storm fetish. Like, he really, really had a... Like, there's rumors that he had a prostitute dressed up as Storm. I don't know. They're probably not true. but it's heavily... It's very blatant in his writing that he was really attracted to Storm. And Dracula's not the first enemy. He had Doctor Doom do this too. Basically, he repeatedly has big megalomaniacal villains. Loki too. Almost every single big megalomaniacal villain captures Storm, and he's like, "I want you, my bride. You're so hot. Please do me." And always ends with Storm being like, "I'm too strong for you. I am a more powerful woman." And he's like, "Ah, you are too powerful woman. I cannot take away your freedom and stuff." It's so Mary. It's so Mary Sue, first of all.
But the thing is, at this time especially, she is literally the only character in comic books that has that. I will give him a pass.
But for me, it's like nails on chalkboard reading it, because like this story was good until it got to this point where Dracula's just like, "You're so great, Storm. I'm gonna let you go, and because I can't take away your freedom, make you like, and not have you. I rather have you alive and not doing me than have you dead because you're so hot." Like this is like nails on chalkboard for me. Like I just really don't.
I just think I've seen this whole like "I won't compromise for you" thing from a man so fucking much that like having, even though it is a lot, and Claremont does fall on his tropes a lot, having it be like this is so ahead of its time. It really
is. Claremont also has a mind control fetish, which is present here too. So this is for me. It's like I can understand why you guys like it because it is well written. But like I've seen
for you fucking scrubs who don't know every Chris Claremont book.
I mean, I have read Chris Claremont's entire run.
I'm not saying you guys are wrong. I'm saying for me, this just feels like, first of all, it's Claremont's tropes embodied.
There's no BDSM. It's not a pure Claremont story.
But it's at this time, like the BDSM has come into the 80s.
Yeah.
But like it's Claremont's fetishes put into form. It's Mary Sueism, and also this is also a filler story in the middle of a story I really like called the Brood Saga. Basically, you have this big sci-fi story where basically the X-Men fight a group of aliens. It's one of my favorite X-Men stories. And in the middle, you have a random Dracula story that has nothing to do with anything. So I can understand why you guys like it, but for me, the story is just...
Sly, I feel like you disparage so many stories because they just come up in like the middle or at the end of your favorite runs.
That's not a valid point, because you guys are reading it just like, oh, as a part of this episode...
Welcome to comics.
No, but I do understand where Sly's coming from.
Yeah, no,
Darryl, imagine you're playing like any fucking game, Mega Man. All of a sudden you start playing a puzzle game in the middle of it. Maybe it's a decent puzzle game, but you're like, I want to play Mega Man. Like, why you... Like, I can't say you guys are wrong, because you guys obviously have wrong. It's an opinion, but I don't fault you for liking it. But I'm just saying, for my thing, it just feels like nails on a chalkboard reading this again.
I do remember when I read this in context, like when I was reading through Claremont's run in order, this issue did stand out as bizarre and out of place, and I liked it a lot more reading it here than in context.
Yeah, it works better as a standalone.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm cool with Dracula 2 submitting to Storm because of her power. Because I think
Are you
Storm...
finding Doctor Doom and Loki doing that too? Because they did that too.
Oh, well, I'd have to read and see it in context.
Okay.
Because Dracula, like, even though he's evil, he's such... He's such, like, a romantic, kinda, like, in a weird, perverse kind of way.
Yeah, that's why I said. I find you guys like it, because standalone, I think the writing is good. Like you said, the character work is solid. And standalone is just a story, like a very... Basically, it's a story of Bram Stoker's Dracula, except a Storm instead of Mina, whatever her name is.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, Mina. I think that was it.
Yeah.
All right, so...
Basically, the only thing that happens there is, like, Kitty giving her the ultimatum, like, Aurora's love of Kitty overwhelmed, like, Dracula's mind control.
Yeah,
and then they have a happy time after, and they're like, she must be cured because she's flying into the sun.
I also want to point out, I really like the scene where basically they're both crying, and Kitty's like, hey, what do you think the guys will think seeing all of us ball our heads like a couple of sillies? And Aurora's just like, please, kitten, I do not care. And I really like that scene where they're crying, like, bawling at each other, and they're like, worried about looking like idiots in front of the men, but they're like, I don't care, like, we love each other.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean about Claremont. Like, yeah, he might marry Sue Storm sometimes.
Sue Storm.
Sue Storm.
But he gets married to Sue Storm every day.
It's just so, like... She's such a good character.
She is,
and like,
and Kitty, the young one,
especially at the time.
Kitty is like the one who's like worried about what people are going to think, and she's like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I like that moment a lot.
And then Moira McTaggart calls to continue the story arc. Dracula's gone, guys. Time to talk about Professor X.
Okay. Talking about the alien story that's interrupted. So even if maybe the X-Men feel a little bit appropriate, but do you know what doesn't feel appropriate? Thor.
Yeah, we touched on it a little.
This was one that just the premise, I was like, how does that work?
We do have to bring up, we hash a bit of what we brought up in the Thor Croaks episode, in that Thor was originally a power fantasy, like Clark Kent, like Captain Marvel, where it was basically about this weak doctor who bangs his staff on the ground and becomes Thor.
Bangs his staff.
Yeah.
His poor secretary and nurses.
Did I ever tell you about that Greek curse guy who hits his dick on rock?
So I become Thor every night, but... basically until Walt Simonson and his run, where he turns Thor into a frog, the character wasn't solidly, Asgardian doing Asgardian stuff. Like he was between like Earth shenanigans, worrying about being a doctor and stuff, and
Between jobs.
Yeah.
And it always, even though I love Jack Kirby's run, it still comes off kind of like weird, and like it's really hard to explain a lot. And this is actually just 3 or 4 issues before Simonson gets rid of Don Blake completely.
Yeah.
And so like this is
that soon?
Yeah. So this is like it's not right before Frog Thor because that's towards the end of his run, but it is it's very close before the like big relaunch.
And then like in the Thor Crux issue episode, Ryan mentioned like for like 10 years no one gave a shit about Thor comics, and this is part of the era, and you can see why no one gave a shit about the story.
I was just about to say, can we just skip like the first half of this comic? Like
Probably.
Dracula doesn't show up for half of it.
Oh, just real quick, creative team. There are literally 2 people I've never heard of, and that happens so infrequently on the show.
Yeah, like we talked about that in the DC versus discrimination episode. Like when it comes to a name neither me or Ryan don't know, that's saying a lot.
Yeah, so who is this?
Me don't know.
Alan Zalentz?
And Don Perlin is the penciler.
Yeah, so I have no idea who these people are.
So the stuff that you can just quickly explain. The stuff that Phil doesn't want to give a shit about is Thor's secret identity is being framed for murder.
It's not even a secret identity because when he's in Don Blake form, he's like a different person. He speaks completely differently. I don't get it.
We could do a whole episode on Don Blake.
Yeah, no one gets it really, but
But it's this really long, like, super in-depth scene. Like, there really is a lot of lore and plot about this, about Don Blake liking this girl, who then...
It's Jane Foster, Natalie Portman from the movies.
Oh.
Yeah.
But instead of a scientist, she's a nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah, then
He bangs
took
his
her-
staff.
He took her to Asgard, and his dad wasn't impressed with her and teleported her back home. And then she was sick, and then his Thor's lover went into her body, and then they went up to Asgard.
All this stuff happened like over a decade before this book came out. I don't know why they go into such detail about it.
I don't know who gives a shit or even know about this stuff.
I love that story, but
It was one of
whatever.
those instances where I was reading it, and I could understand why you just put like a little footnote at the bottom where you're like, oh, this happened here. Because when they're trying to explain it, it comes off across so comic-y where you're like, what? Like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? And there's some staff that Kamo Tharn.
Yeah, basically what happened was, if you watch the Thor movies, one member of Thor's Asgard gang, the girl, Lady Sif, in the comics, she's Thor's love interest. She's more of a love interest than Natalie Portman, Jane Foster. But what happened was, Natalie Portman, Jane Foster was dying, and Lady Sif merged with her, but now Lady Sif became an actual character again, and now Natalie Portman, Jane Foster disappeared. And it's very
Became a
convoluted.
staff or something. It's like so weird.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Well, I merged with this human woman, and we become a staff, and then she gets transported.
The staff is great too because it looks like a Thundercats toy that's just tacked onto its head or the tip of it. It's so goofy looking. So like the first 10 pages are all just about.
And he's being framed for murder.
Yeah, because she disappeared, and he can't explain. She disappeared because she's actually a staff, guys.
And the person the person that's pushing the case against him is his alternate human self.
This is what?
Alternate human self or something? Like this other guy that she was made to fall in love with?
Yes.
Because it looks just like him.
Don Blake is based off of actually human, and he's when they wanted to write Natalie Portman, Jane Foster out of comics, they had her marry this guy instead. This is why Thor sucked. Like we admit this sucked. Like, we're not saying this is great writing, guys.
Yeah, like as a fan of the era they're referencing, it is like something I can't recommend to anyone. I just can't.
This is what it was like reading the first 10 pages and they're giving you all this stuff and you're like, Dracula? Like, where are you?
Yeah, I was like, Sly, did you send us the wrong comics to read?
Because Thor even goes around. He investigates. He talks to a janitor about where she could have gone.
Yeah.
He talks to someone inside the hospital. He
A
talks to
janitor with
some...
a Transylvania accent, by the way. Yeah, I remember it. A long staff of a lion's head. To tell the truth, it would give me a big reward. I guess it's supposed to be a red herring to this guy's Dracula.
Okay, anyway, I hate this shit. Let's just move on.
Anyway, it just randomly cuts to typical Dracula stuff where you have a bunch of worshippers of his chanting and trying to bring him back to life, chanting out Emoreth, Dracula, Viva Libus, Dracula, Dracula, Dracula. And then he just rises up and he's like, hey, what's up?
Rise from your grave.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh man, I am thirsty. I will be right back. So he flies away.
I am parched, guys.
He flies away. Thor meets with Sif on a rooftop. And Dracula sees them and he's like, oh, there's like, I sense some power in them there because they're gods.
Oh my god.
Or demigods. And then we get the scene, and I felt like this was one of the saddest moments I've read.
Is this when like Archie and his friends show up?
Yeah, it's like this yearbook club gang, and there's this nerd next to this guy with like a varsity letter jacket on, and they're like friends. So I'm like, oh, I thought this was gonna be like typical like just generic high school stuff where it's like this guy's picking on her, but they all seem like pretty good friends. And then as they're walking home, two of them see each other later, and it's like two couples and a nerd, and then three of them get bitten by Dracula and turned into vampires.
Like they're like all these like, it's just like, look at these fun nice kids, nobody's being mean, and then Dracula's just like, fuck you guys.
Yeah, you could have just showed like people just getting attacked by Dracula. It was weird to personify them, especially in such a way where it wasn't like generic, where it made you hate the victims. Where like, okay, these are just regular people.
I like that though. It's cool because you're like, Dracula's an asshole.
I like it, but it's just like sad.
Yeah, it's needlessly sad in a comic where Thor was explaining what happened to him for 10 pages.
It is out of place in this story because the story is so silly.
Yeah.
And this part is the darkest Dracula stuff I've read so far from Marvel, and I've read several issues at this point. And it's weird to have this one be darker than the actual Tomb of Dracula.
Yeah,
story.
that's true.
So they go to the corner, and he's like, oh, look, all these people...
Who goes to the corner?
Everybody, apparently.
This guy, the guy that's in charge of handling Don Blake's murder case.
Yeah, and Don Blake, and the guy who looks like Don Blake, and a bunch of other people.
Oh my god, this storyline made me want to kill myself. Like, I really hated this.
What's great is Don Blake shows up because he's like, I want to check this out. And this guy's just like sassing him. He's like, oh wow, what a surprise seeing you here. Yeah, fancy bumping into you here.
Yeah, the guy who was accusing him, he's just like, oh, of course you're gonna go see who the vampire victim, you piece of shit, you fucking murderer.
Well, he does act very suspicious though. He's constantly just like, I gotta go, guys. Cancel all my appointments. Okay, bye. Like, he acts like he just murdered someone.
And one thing I like is the police chief is like, I wish Thor was here to help us with the murder case. And Don Blake's like, Thor, you say. He runs out saying, I gotta go do something. And then he comes back at Thor.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. How I love that stupid thing of where you hate the person, but their alter ego is what you love.
Yeah.
Because Thor shows up, and this guy's like elated. He's like, speak of the superhero.
Yeah.
And they work together. He's trying to give him details on the case. He's like, I'll show up there. And they're so buddy-buddy.
But that's something that comics like give up in like 1968 because it's dumb. Like having it in 1983 is insane.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to say. It's really dumb, but I love that it was just wedged in this story.
That's why I don't like. I know Phil hates this comic. I part of me kind of loves it because it's so stupid. Like, it's definitely not good, but it's so stupid that it's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
It's too long to be so stupid. Like,
yeah, that's fair. It is fair.
I felt like this went quicker than the X-Men one.
You're a fucking liar.
I like how Darryl has an opinion difference than Phil, and Phil's never like I respect disagree. He's like, you're a fucking liar.
I can't believe you're telling the truth. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
When I first read Simonson's Thor, I was like almost off-put because in his first issue, Thor just basically shows up and he's like, looks like Don Blake's dead forever, never gonna think about Jane Foster again. And in like 2 pages for no reason, he gives up everything. And now I get why everyone loves it so much, because this is what he's walking onto. Of course he's like, that's all dumb, see you later.
Yeah.
Like, even like the way they recap the 60s stuff, it's so jarring and ridiculous and confusing that like I'm so glad that he doesn't pretend to give a shit. He's just like, that's dumb, now it's just Thor.
So Thor's like, hey, I'll investigate these mysterious murders.
Me, the God of Thunder, will help investigate these murder cases.
Yeah, that's what's weird too. It's like Thor, does he help with cases like Batman? Or like this guy? Is this his Jim Gordon?
Yeah, this is what I mean. Back then, they couldn't really tell what constitutes a Thor story. Like, what was he fight? Like, what, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't even know Thor was like friends with people. They were like, "Hey, Thor, we gave you the key to the city. Like, you're such a great person." I thought he just kind of showed up to wreck. But I didn't read any Thor, so
especially not this Thor.
Anyway, we cut back to Dracula, who's curiously sleeping in an open lid coffin over a glass roof.
So stupid.
You know how people have tanning. He's moon tanning, like in the Addams Family.
You better make sure to close it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, if I don't close this in 6 hours, I'm dead.
Yeah, I hope I don't accidentally fall asleep. Otherwise, I'm gonna die.
With my eyes closed in bed. It's like going to sleep with like a bucket of lava above your head, slowly tilting. And you're like, I'm just gonna take a quick nap. Like,
Hold
I'll
on,
be
I
fine.
gotta just sit on Facebook for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Well, they did it to purposely like light it to show you, to give lighting to the scene, but it's just so silly.
And I love that he's like sitting there and laying there, and I guess he's really not about to fall asleep because somebody interrupts him and he just starts screaming at them immediately.
He goes, "Perdition's unholy blaze! Who dares disturb the Prince of Darkness?" So he was having a wet dream about Sif, and he really likes her and her alluring beauty because, of course, it's Dracula, so he needs a woman to bite.
And then for some reason, Don Blake is banging Sif.
I was weirded out by this too because I'm like, if they're different people, why? Like, did Thor sleep with her and then he
cheated on him? Thor's a cuckold.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
No idea. It's so, and I've read more Thor than anybody I know, and it is still bizarre.
Because she knows that they're both the same person too. I think.
Yeah.
Whatever. Just continue.
Also, Don Blake doesn't he become like actual separate from Thor later on?
Yeah, and later on in a book we're definitely gonna do, someone kills him and cuts his head off and makes his sentient head watch them fuck Don Blake's body without a head. It's pretty great.
Whoa! Wow!
Okay.
Did Mark Millar write that?
And Don Blake's head is just like, why are you doing this? And they're just like, you like it, right? You like when I fuck your headless body? Thanks, Matt Fraction. Way to go.
Wow. Okay. So
I love Thor.
So Thor's trying to figure out where this Thundercats toy went.
Thor is a very bad detective.
So he's like, "Oh, I need to go see Doctor Strange because he's a mystic." And he's like, "Oh, wait a second. Let me turn to Thor because there's people he meets at the hospital. He meets the Jim Gordon guy there."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, those corpses rose up out of the coroner's room, and Thor finds them, like one of them attacking a woman, and of course he notices it's a vampire. Throws his hammer at it, but the vampire is quick enough to be able to dodge it, but it was caught off guard because the hammer always returns to him, and it kills him.
It's just a religious rule, like it kills vampires right away.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool.
That's OP.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't realize that.
I didn't
That's
either.
cool.
That's a really cool idea.
Can I just say one quick thing? How weird it is to use a religious relic, believing they say he's a strong believer. It's like of himself though. Like he's the god. Like it's like I believe in me.
Isn't one of Thor's big weaknesses like his arrogance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, take that, Phil.
Sorry,
Continuity
sorry.
cop Phil over here.
Sorry guys.
Yeah, do you think Jesus couldn't fight
Yeah.
Dracula?
Yes. I mean, you think Jesus couldn't fight Dracula? You fucking asshole.
You're right.
Anyway, the three kids rise up from the grave, and then Thor shows up, and he just bashes them all with the hammer flying around.
Just to clarify, one of them got out of the corner, and three of them were buried, and the three now rise from the grave.
No, what's really weird is the story is like we see the three kids get killed, and one guy got killed off screen, and that's the one guy that they found biting the woman. But it's just weird to bring up. It's like, why couldn't you just make it whatever?
My favorite thing is this guy that's walking around the grave that like sees them wake up. They crawl out of the ground and grab his leg, and he falls, and he thinks to himself, "What a time to take a dive!" Like it's not like a coincidence. They grabbed you and you fell.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is that he had past history with Thor because he.
Oh yeah, that's so stupid.
Yeah, he brings up it's like, oh, well, I last helped the Crusader, and I'm all sorry about that.
Oh Jesus!
And it's like, bygones be bygones, friend. And it's like, phew, thanks, Thor.
But before that, you have to explain how Thor dispatches these guys. Like they try to fly away as bats, and like he just like Blade, he grabs onto their bat wings, and he's holding in one hand, he's getting his hammer to basically smack with the hammer with the other hand. Like
It's pretty brutal, actually. There's like a scene where he's like spack. He must be like actually holding the bat down and like hammering
And
it,
smashing
to
its brains in.
It's pretty awesome. This fight's actually pretty cool, and like he makes it pour on them, so like there's a lot of cool rain effects. The art's actually pretty good in this story.
Okay, so the issue ends with Sif sleeping in bed. The moon is full this night, and bathed in its glow, an immortal goddess sleeps, her dark locks splashing the pillow, and her white skin glistening like ivory.
White skin again. We have the foreigner coming in to take the
with
white
the
women.
white girls.
Yeah.
Her dreams are passionate this night and full of longing, for it seems forever since her prince last crushed her in his arms and swore away all else but his undying love. And she's like, Thor? And then Dracula's tapping at the window, and she says, enter, because she thinks, like...
It's Thor?
She's dreaming it's Thor.
She's like, oh, come in, Thor. And he's like, that could be my name. And he comes inside.
No, she just says my prince.
Yeah, I know. It's just silly.
But, like, it's sleep-talking invitation. I feel like that's, like... I would take that up with, like, whoever runs
That's not consent.
Yeah.
I would take that up with the vampire committee.
Yeah, exactly. And he just eats the shit out of her neck.
Yep, he bites her, and he's like, my ravishing goddess, now you are mine.
No, you have to do the voice, Darryl.
My ravishing goddess, now you are mine.
Yes.
Blah.
But, and Phil was wondering, how can Dracula face up against Thor? That's because now he has god blood in his veins.
I actually liked that they actually had some kind of explanation.
I think this was the dumbest plot stuff ever, because it does some stuff, but not other stuff, and it's all whatever works for the plot.
Yeah.
Because
It is.
he drains Sif's blood, and it gives her amnesia, and he's like, wow, this must be effect of the goddess blood.
Also, Sif is a great character, and she deserves way better than all the fucking bullshit.
She also gets
that she goes
fangs, and he's
through.
like, that's not supposed to happen until you die for 3 days, and it must be the goddess blood.
It's really hand-wavy bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much just magic. Well, it's magic.
So now, part 2, Thor 333.
At Dracula's command is the cover image.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's Dracula commanding Sif to attack Thor on the cover.
She has amnesia, and she's like, who are you? And he's like, remember, I'm your prince and you're my bride. And she's like, oh, yeah.
Why does she have amnesia? Because of the bite?
Her blood.
Because god blood.
Does that give you amnesia?
If you get it drained out of you into Dracula.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
The god blood is the MacGuffin of the story. If we've had an explanation, you say, why is this happening?
Because god blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He basically says to Sif, come with me, my love. The night skies beckon, and they fly away together. And then we have Thor talking to Doctor Strange, and this is when I realized, like, I was always confused when I was younger when people talked about Doctor Strange being, like, one of the strongest Marvel characters.
Yeah.
It's because I was like, how could he beat Iron Man? Iron Man's in, like, a mech suit. It's really cool. And I realized through this that, like, the magic in the Marvel Universe can just do whatever it wants.
Yeah.
It doesn't need explanations.
The magic and that's why I actually love about Doctor Strange, because, like, the magic is so over the top. Like, I was actually reading a discussion on Doctor Strange recently, and there was like, I read the 60s Doctor Strange comic. It was so stupid. They cast a spell of vanishing, and it's such a powerful vanishing spell that only does advantage to the person, it vanishes the spell itself, so it was never cast. You could never cast it again. It's so stupid. And I'm like, that's fucking awesome.
That's so
That
cool.
is fucking awesome.
I think that's
Yeah.
so cool.
No, it is cool. And he's basically a level 20 wizard hanging out with these superheroes, and he could just be
Yeah.
like, I remove you from existence. Or like even in Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the game, he was so overpowered because he could turn any enemy into a box of money. And you break them open and get the money. Like,
That's not ethical.
but it's like, it's so overpowered because he's like, I have a spell for that.
Yeah.
So he mind probes, with Thor's consent, he mind probes Thor, and he finds out that he's also Don Blake, and he's like, hey, do you want me to forget this? I can use a spell of forgetfulness on myself. And Thor's like, no, it's okay.
It's okay. I trust you.
And he's basically, he's just trying to find, they go up and see this orb of Agamotto
It's like a crystal ball,
to
basically.
probe into Sif's mind to locate where this extremely stupid looking staff is. I love the picture of it laughing in the
But
orb.
just explain the scene. Like, they have the orb, then they zoom in the orb, and Lady Sif appears. Then it starts showing her brain,
Yeah, her face is melting away to show her brain.
and then it shows her brain, and then it shows the staff hovering over her brain. I'm like,
Like a lollipop.
yeah.
Yeah, except it's a lion's face, like a lion man's face, and he's just having a good time.
This is definitely going to be the episode picture on our Facebook page of this fucking stupid toy.
It looks like he was told that stupid muffin joke and liked it.
Yeah. And I love, too, how Doctor Strange is so powerful that by probing his mind and seeing Sif and the staff, he can then probe Sif's mind and find the staff wherever it is.
Yeah.
Like, his power is so strong. He's like ultimate Cerebro.
And the only reason why Doctor Strange never just solves everyone's problems, because he's always like, I'm too busy like saving the world in another dimension.
Spider-Man will go to him and be like, can you help? And he'll be like, no, fuck you.
I'm fighting Cthulhu or something.
Yeah, no, really. And then Doctor Strange is like, by the way, it's Dracula also.
Yeah, he explains it's like, oh, this is bad. She's been touched by a vampire, Dracula, the vampire lord.
Yep.
And so Thor's like, well, I have to go rescue her. So he throws his hammer and flies with it.
He throws his hammer away, and he's like, oh shit, I fucked up.
And then he's like, I have to return to my apartment as Don
This
Blake.
is so stupid.
But he says, like, she's in danger. I have to check to make sure Doctor Strange wasn't just full of shit. Even though this is super urgent, I'll land on the roof, turn into limpy Don Blake, and then walk downstairs and get into the room.
cancel my appointments.
Yeah, he talks to this lady and she's like, I'm a new...
Yeah, why?
New secretary.
Why does this... Why?
Fuck this whole...
Loretta Parameter.
Yeah.
It's Parmeter.
Yeah.
P-A-R-M.
It's just 3 frames. It's dumb. And then you get Dracula expositioning away some more weird stuff.
He's getting excited to fuck her.
Blood seems to enhance my own renewed vitality. What a bride of darkness. He mentions that Storm, that she's even better than Storm.
Yeah. You've been my last ex.
He's like, fuck you, Chris Claremont.
Yeah, fuck you. Lady Sif is a real hot shit. Fuck you.
And then on the next page, it's my favorite panel I've ever seen. It's Dracula in what looks like just like blue, almost bell bottoms, and just a white shirt and normal shoes with this elaborate cape on. And he's the frame is so small he has to crouch down to waist level, and he's holding his hands up and just yelling. He talks about Dracula commanding presence and being so like theatrical but like enjoyable and powerful in the X-Men comic, and here he just looks like some pathetic guy in an apartment.
He's in an apartment and Sif's on the couch, like,
And he picks up the couch and he's like, look how strong I am. I can lift the couch with you on it. Like...
And what's even better is his like cult follower comes with a wrapped present.
He's bright green. He's a bright green cult follower. And he's like, hey, got a present for you. Got a package, UPS.
and Dracula's like, give me the box now, fuck off.
A package from Mr. V. Dracul.
And the D on it storms the scarf D.
Oh my god.
So he gives her the present. It's a dress. And he's like, hey, let's go to the opera.
It's a dress that looks just like the dress she's already wearing.
No, it's
instead of light green, it's dark green.
She was in a nightgown.
Yeah.
It looks the same.
that's not the kind of dress you wear outside.
Brian wears his pajamas outside.
I guess.
Then we move on. Thor goes back to the police and he's like, hey, I need information. And he's like, how about you check out this apartment? And then Thor finds that cultist who is delivering UPS.
Yeah.
Yeah, we looked up in the phone book V. Dracul, and he's right over there.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, cultist, tell me where Dracula is. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like...
He slams the ground,
Yeah.
which throws him up into the air.
No, he opens a pit in in an alleyway in New
Yeah.
York City. Like, that's a big... You can't just do that.
And this is my favorite part of the comic, actually, where he tells him he's at the opera, and Thor flies away, and he walks away going, "Satan, forgive me. What have I done?" And he walks into the cultist room, and he's like, "Guys, I betrayed Dracula!" And he just stabs himself and goes, "There can be no mercy!" And he commits suicide, and everyone runs to the altar and starts chanting, "In nomine arterium infernonium."
It's ironic because this is the dumbest out of the 3 stories, but it's the darkest too.
Yeah.
The frame where he's stabbing himself, the background is all red, and the guy stabbing himself is just silhouetted in black, like it's real dramatic. Yeah. I love that everyone's not, like, they're not surprised at seeing this, they're just like, oh, we gotta do something.
Yeah.
The seppuku was expected.
I love, too, I actually like that he has cultists, because that reminds me again of Castlevania, where, like... You know, it was not by my hand I was given flesh. I was called here by humans who wish to pay me tribute.
What is a man? A miserable middle pile of secrets.
Yeah,
what is a comic? A miserable pile of panels.
Yeah.
Perhaps the same could be said of all comics.
So they're at the opera, and I like that Dracula's actually like, "Hey, let me tell you about opera." The first time I saw this, I liked it.
Yeah, he's like, I saw the original, you know, whatever. I'm old.
Yeah, in 1895 or something. So then Thor shows up.
He walks in the front door and starts just yelling, "Dracula, where are you? Fuck you!"
My second favorite panel is he does the same, like, Dracula exasperated pose, and he's just in the middle of an aisle, in the middle of an opera, yelling, "Dracula, Prince of Darkness, Thor of Asgard has come for his goddess."
He's just destroying New York streets and then ruining the opera.
I like it fits Thor though. He just literally kicks it around. He's like, "Dracula, come fight me, 1v1!" and as soon as he sees him, he jumps on him. He's like, "Fight me!"
And one reason I do find this book entertaining is because Thor and everyone's still talk like Thor characters.
Yeah.
So like Lady Sif is like, "What is this, my love? Whose features seem so familiar? Why does he assail thee?" Like everyone is like, "Thou and thee," and it's Dracula like, "I am Dracula." Yes.
I do. This fight's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Dracula and Thor begin fighting, and Thor just jumps into Dracula, and it's like, haha, I can fly away. I'm undefeatable.
Yeah.
And he destroys the fucking opera house.
Yeah, and then he throws the hammer at Dracula. Dracula dodges it, and the hammer breaks the roof of the opera house, so when it comes caving down, Thor has to hold it to protect the civilians.
And he's annoyed. He's like, "Get out of the way, assholes! I gotta go fight Dracula."
Yeah, can't you see I'm wrecking your fucking opera house?
And then on the roof, Thor's like, guess what? I'm the god of thunder. Time to thunder you." And Dracula's like, "But it was established in the X-Men comic.
I command storms.
Yeah, I control storms." And
It's actually cool. The narration is, for the moment, as they're both trying to summon down the storm to strike each other with lightning. For the moment of a heartbeat, the storm ceases, as though pondering which master to obey, and then raw elements renew their fury, obeying both but striking neither. And so just rain's pouring down upon them as they start fighting.
Can't believe Dracula controls weather as well as the god of thunder.
it is pretty fucked up, but he has god blood now too from Asgard, so you can.
What's great about this fight is like Dracula, whereas like with the X-Men, he seemed formidable. He was like doing a lot of things to thwart them. Here, it's kind of just him trying to get away from Thor because Thor is so good at melee.
Yeah.
Like he cannot fight him. So Thor runs over to grab him. Dracula turns into mist. Thor comes down to get him at like a street level, and Dracula's like, "Have some rats from the sewer."
So many rats, like all the rats of New York City, pile on top of.
These
Thor.
are the rats that he eventually conquers as a frog.
You know, I was gonna say that this is the second issue now we've read where Thor is killing rats. So
Thor hates rats. Like,
yeah, he must.
So Thor throws off these rats, and then Dracula's like, he keeps smack talking him. "You are blind, Thor. The Prince of Darkness beclouds all radiance with his aura of evil. Do you not see that Dracula triumphs?" And he's just standing there, and Thor's throwing his hammer at him, and Dracula's turning into mist. And then he uses that opportunity when Dracula turns into mist, since that's what Dracula's action for that round.
Well, it makes sense. You're using concentration to be mist, so he's not using concentration to control thunder. So Thor's like, got him.
yeah.
Yeah, he strikes him, and it ruins his shirt. And then he goes to pretty much like crush Dracula with his hammer, and he disappears because his cultists have summoned him back. And then Doctor Strange's face appears in a goofy bubble.
Yeah.
And he basically says, like, don't worry about Thor.
No, he says, members of a Chicago Dracula cult have transported him to New York.
Yeah.
Like, there's a Chicago cult.
Too lady to rest.
Yeah.
And he explains, like, the goddess's blood in him has been rejected, just like how Dracula's blood in Sif is now rejected. And my favorite part of how this ends is Doctor Strange says, "I'll go fight Dracula," which I'm like, oh, poor Dracula. Like, what is he gonna do? Send rats after him?
Yeah.
Since Sif and Thor reunite, she's like, haha.
Okay, fuck you guys. Because the nightgown she wore had this pattern all over it. And then he changed her into a solid green dress. And even the artist mixes them up. Because she has the nightgown pattern. And then in the next page, it's solid green.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So just because the artist last time mixed up black people in...
Yeah, so Ryan's saying all black people are the same. Ryan's a fucking
all right.
racist.
Just 'cause the artist mixed it
I'm
up.
saying they do look the same. I'm talking about the dress, not the black people.
Racist Ryan over
Jesus,
here.
fuck. I've taken Sly's mantle.
Psychopath Sly,
Yep.
Racist Ryan.
Racist Ryan, fascist Phil, psychopath Sly. We need something for Daryl.
Dickhead Darryl.
Dumb Darryl.
Dick face Darryl.
Yeah, dick face Daryl.
No, my bad.
Okay, so Sif is here, and she's like, "Don't worry, I'm not a vampire."
The end.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they fly away to do their next adventure.
Find
in
the staff for
Asgard.
real now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the end.
So Dracula was just kind of like thrown in that story because they're like, we need something to bookend the text of what Thor's next adventure is going to be.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So,
Recap page.
which one was your guys' favorite?
The X-Men
X-Men.
one.
X-Men one for everyone?
Out of the three, it's hard because it's like I kind of had fun with the Thor one, but if we were to recommend anything, the X-Men one is probably the obvious pick. That one felt the most like a complete story.
The Thor one would have been so much better for me if it didn't have all the shitty Don Blake stuff.
Yeah, that's welcome to like 70s Thor.
My favorite, it might be the Blade one.
Fuck you.
Oh man, that's my least favorite.
I know it might be just because I read the other issues and I like the one surrounding it better. I was a standalone. Like I said, it's the worst out of the 10 I've read, the 12 I've read. But like, my context for Blade helps it, whereas my context for X-Men hurts it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The only one I liked the Blade one fine. I just liked the X-Men one a lot more.
Yeah.
The Blade one, and actually like most of these comics, how I personally feel about it is that they're not, they're just kind of there. Like, they're not offensive enough to be like, this is bad, and like I feel bad having read it. But I also wasn't into the stories.
So do you or do you not regret reading this, Darryl?
So I regret it in a way that's not like where I'm like, this was bad. It's just like, I kind of wish I read just better stories instead.
How about you, Phil?
I regretted all of them except the X-Men one.
Like, it's kind of middle of the road, I would say, for me. Where it was just like so...
Yeah.
Kind of bland.
It's like, I wish I spent my time doing something else, but the X-Men one I enjoyed enough to be like, I like to see the X-Men do stuff, even if they're fighting Dracula.
For me, I would have rather read a better X-Men story.
The Tomb of Dracula one, I was pretty like, that was kind of, I felt like it was kind of just going through the motions and wasting my time a little bit. But the other ones I enjoyed. The Thor one I enjoyed ironically, the X-Men one I liked. But I've also read the X-Men one before, so what about you, Sly?
I will admit that you guys flipped me a little bit on the X-Men one. As you're reading
I'm going to flip you off.
Yeah.
I am flipping you off.
I was going to say it's the worst one, but you pointed out the character stuff and the stuff that really works really well. And just because I haven't, the Storm fetishism bugs me. I can't just say the book sucks, even though it's well written.
Well, it's like when you read Claremont relative to other Bronze Age writers, like that might not be the best Claremont issue, even that came out in that whole. It might be the worst Claremont issue from the 30 issues surrounding it.
Yeah,
but it's still way better than most things at the time.
Yes, yeah. So for me, Thor is the worst one, and I would say Blade and X-Men are kind of ties for me.
Okay.
Oh, a lot of different opinions on these.
It's a divisive issue, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This was a divisive issue.
And that's why I picked these ones, because like it's not clear they're absolutely terrible, or it's not clear they're absolutely good. I thought they were interesting ones, interesting to talk about. That really established you'd rather have a nemesis over Rain, over this stuff. So I think we can all vote Darryl to be the wrong one of this group.
I vote for that as well.
Yeah.
Every time you bring up Nemesis, I just hate you more and more.
Yeah.
Every time I think about Nemesis, I kind of like it more and more. How do you bring a womb to a collapse?
Alright,
so real briefly, we don't have any questions, but Tracy sent a follow-up email to last week where she talked about, we were talking about like gender politics and stuff, and she actually sent me a website called bookriot.com/comics that talks a lot about like gender politics, and it used to be called Panels, if anyone knew about that, and a lot of social justice stuff, basically like all the stuff we were talking about, probably over the last like month, because it's been kind of a theme. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff on there, so if you want to check that out. And somebody left us a 5-star review, and I don't remember who it was, so thanks, sorry.
It was you, wasn't it?
It wasn't me.
One of your dummy accounts.
Yeah.
Barry Anderson.
I love Ryan.
And
I love Don Blake.
And as always, we are a proud member of the Comrade Radio Network. I've been listening to Square Roots lately, which is another show on the network. They play Final Fantasy and make fun of each other and call each other pieces of shit, just like us.
And they also hate Kingdom Hearts, just like Darryl.
Just like Darryl, they hate Kingdom Hearts.
God.
And
thanks, guys, if you're listening.
So you should check them out.
There needs to be more of us.
Yeah, you should check them out.
More of us and less Brians.
Yeah, and
less Slides and Phils too, right?
Yeah,
and most people actually. Sorry, Darryl, you're in the minority.
I'm pro Nemesis and anti Kingdom Hearts.
You're in the super minority there.
So as always, rate, review, subscribe, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all that stuff. And we are also on the Comrade Radio Network. If you go to comraderadio.com/divisive issues, you could stream it there. And yeah, that's all I got. Also Twitter and email, Gmail, all that stuff.
So recommendations?
Yes. Who wants to go first?
Phil?
I was gonna say, like Bram Stoker's Dracula or Carmilla, but that's kind of boring. So I'll say Castlevania.
What's Darryl gonna pick then?
Did I steal yours, Darryl?
Nope.
Okay, Castlevania is a really fun take on the whole Dracula mythos. Not, the writing doesn't It's not about that. It's about, going and killing Dracula, who keeps getting resurrected by humans, and
they're
really
just
cool.
really cool games with like a monster mash horror like undertone.
Yeah, they're really fun.
Where you get to fight like the Mummy, Frankenstein's monster, Medusa.
What about you, Darryl?
Me?
Yeah.
I was going to recommend Castlevania when I first read these because I'm like, it really is just like a great franchise, and you can start with the classic Vanias like 1 or Super 4, or you could go with like the Metroidvanias like Symphony of the Night or Aria of Sorrow are really good entry points. But I'm going to pick a game that's on Steam for $1 called Vlad the Impaler, and it's a text adventure where you're in Istanbul and you're trying to figure out the source of all these murders, and it has a really like excellent horror undertone and it has amazing art. It's not a great game. Like, there's a lot of problems with it, but it's one of those where it's like, if you just pay $1 to play it, like, I feel like it's really worth it. And if you want some more in-depth thoughts on it, if you go to the Minor Bits, which is the blog where I write games, you can find an entry on it. If you just type in Minor Bits Vlad into Google.
How did I not know that you did this?
How do you keep this secret from us?
Because I didn't know when to bring this up.
Fuck you.
I've kept a blog for like 3 years.
What? How can, this is crazy to me that you're
What
so
the
secretive about things like that.
I guess look at that. Now you guys know about it at the same time we do.
But it was one of those things where I didn't know when to... I had been living this life for so long writing.
This
where I was
lie.
like,
I've lived in this lie for so long.
yeah, it's like, when do I reveal it?
Darryl, it's not like a fucking sex dungeon. It's a
Yeah.
blog.
I know. I'm just... I get weird about promoting my own stuff.
We're not promoting. Just tell us we're your friends.
Yeah, we're not.
I don't-
We're not saying like, how did you not mention it on the show? How did you not mention it in conversation?
I don't know.
Daryl's more ashamed of his blog than he is about his love nemesis.
Whatever.
Okay.
My recommendation is a Vertigo book from a couple years ago. It's called The New Dead Guardians. It's just a standalone trade. It's really fun. Basically, zombies show up, and the rich people don't want to get the zombie virus, so they allow vampires to turn them into vampires. And so they become, like, immortal, and it's the only way to beat this, like, zombie plague. And it's just, like, it's set in, like, Victorian England, so it's just, like, it's like a classist kind of, like, analysis. It's fun, it's cool, it's short. Read it. It's good.
Cool.
What about you, Sly?
My recommendation is I was actually looking at a bunch of Dracula films over the weekend to see which one I really want to recommend. The one that I liked the most was from the 1950s called Horror of Dracula. If you know Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, they played. Christopher Lee played Saruman in Lord of the Rings. He played the Count Dooku in Star Wars. He was Dracula in the movie, and Peter Cushing was Van Helsing. Peter Cushing was Moff Tarkin in Star Wars episode 4. And if you're a fan of the book, I haven't read the book, but I'm assuming if you're a fan of the book, you'll probably really fucking hate it because it strays it strays really far from the book. But I like it for many different reasons. Like one reason I love it is because Christopher Lee plays suave Dracula first. Like when Harker and other characters first meet him, he's like, "Oh yes, I'm Dracula. Hello." But then when he becomes Dracula mode, he's like a feral monster, and he's actually scary, which is something Dracula rarely is for me. Peter Cushing is my favorite Van Helsing. Christopher Lee is my favorite Dracula, and I love it.
Cool.
Sounds cool.
So thank you guys for listening. This has been Divisive Issues. I'm Garby.
Oh, man.
I'm Linestaff.
I'm Don Blake.
I am Loretta Parameter.
Stay in continuity.